there's a completely different way to step into the new year and make it the kind of year that feels completely aligned with who you are, with your soul, with your destiny path. That's what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about why the typical approach of setting goals and intentions and resolutions does not work, and what you can do instead, a different approach to stepping into the new year. Welcome, I'm Kim Marie. I'm so glad you're here. This is a channel for women on the path to stepping into their sense of true empowerment. All right, let me begin by first saying that in a way, what we're talking about here is an opportunity to create ritual for yourself. Now, I want to distinguish the difference between ritual and ceremony. Ritual is really more about what's going on inside of you, how it makes you feel, creating a sense of peace and joy, right? You might have that ritual cup of tea or coffee in the morning as you sit outside and listen to the birds sing, or maybe you have a ritual walk in the woods every day or afternoon, or whatever it is for you, something that truly nourishes your soul and supports you to feel good. And rarely do we ever look at those things in terms of setting ourselves up for the new year. We do, however, look at things ceremoniously. And what I mean by that is it tends to be more externally focused. It's a little more rigid. It's kind of dead. It's very linear, right? We're going to go through these steps to get to this result. We're going to go from point A to point B. That's often what we talk about when we're talking about ceremony. This idea that we have this process. Okay, every year I go through this process of journaling, what are my goals going to be, and set my intentions and set resolutions to make those goals happen, or whatever it is, right? It's very ceremonious. But the problem with ceremony often, not always, but often, is that it comes to an end, right? It just seems to end, and then we don't stick with it. We don't honor a process or an unfolding, and that's really what the new year is about. Now, before I get into what can we do instead, I want to invite you to download a completely free workshop. It's a new year in a new way. You'll see the link in the description, and you can download that and be able to go through a whole process. It was an online workshop that I did, and it's a recording of that for you to step into and have this beautiful release and ritual process that's going to take you even deeper into this process of stepping into the new year in a powerfully different way. Okay, so back to this idea of ritual. Ritual is very much more about how I show up, not what I'm going to do, right? And so what we can do to step into the new year in a new way is begin to think about, who have I become? And we can think about the various rituals, experiences, milestones, changes, shifts, all these different things that we've gone through over the past year, and then begin to consider, who have I become in the last year, and who do I want to become in the new year? How do I want to show up? Who do I want to be? Who do I want to become throughout the course of the year as it unfolds? And what are the values I want to align with? What are the things I care about most? When we align with what we care about most, everything changes. And most of our goals and intentions and resolutions often have nothing to do with what we actually value or care about, or maybe very little to do with it. So let me give you an example. When we set a resolution, okay, which is usually because we've had a goal that we set, which is usually because we have these intentions that we had going into the new year. So in this example, let's say we have this intention to be healthier. So we set a goal of exercising every day and losing 50 pounds or whatever it is. And then we have this resolution that I'm gonna make myself get up every day and work out and go to the gym or whatever it is, right? And the problem with that is that it's really, you kind of started it in a closer way with the intention, with this idea of wanting to feel better and feel healthier, okay? But then you turned it into a goal that became measurable. And I'm not saying that goals and the structure and the linear aspect are not important. We need that masculine structure for the feminine to flow through. But the problem is we tend to only look at the masculine structure. We start out with a more feminine kind of approach with the intentions, and then we turn everything into these goals and resolutions. And we don't think about how we want to feel, how we want to show up. That's that internal nature. How could we maybe create a ritual for ourselves where we show up? Maybe we are already going to be out and about running errands on certain days of the week. And we know we want to, we have some intentions to write every week, let's say, or journal, and we have some intentions to get fit and exercise. Well, what happens if when we take our kid to school, there's a wonderful trail and we can get out and go for a walk, and then we can stop at a coffee shop on the way back and sit and enjoy a wonderful cup of tea while we're sitting and writing, right? This is a way that we can begin to weave things together to create a ritual out of the experience where we're not necessarily having this required or measured concept. Now, sure, maybe the measurement can be actually a little bit more feminine. Maybe instead of saying lose 50 pounds, we start to say feel better and more energized. Because you know what? From my own experience as well, so often it's not about the measurements. It's not about what the scale says, what the tape measure says, or any of that. It's about how you feel showing up. When you start doing the things you care about in ways that you care about and maybe making more of a ritual out of them, everything begins to change. You start to feel better. You start to feel like showing up. You feel more motivated to do it. You're not putting this incredible pressure on yourself that causes you to feel overwhelmed and exhausted before you've even started. Okay? So that's the first piece, is that we want to look at things in a more ritualistic manner so that we are not just trying to get from point A to point B, but honoring the journey, the ever-flowing, flexible ebb and flow of the journey. Now, speaking of flow, very closely related to ritual is the idea of rhythm. Now, rhythm literally means flow. That is where the root of that word comes from. Okay? And so rhythm is very different than paying attention to a clock and a rigid schedule, right? The sun rises and sets, not only in a rhythm of rising and setting each day, but in a rhythm of rising and setting at a slightly different time at different times in the year, right? Depending on where you live on the globe. And so there's a rhythm of reliability, a rhythm that says the sun is coming up and it's going to set, and I have this window of time that I can fit things into, right? So when we're setting a rhythm for ourselves, we might look at nature as a wonderful model of the way in which we want to set our rhythm. Now, in nature, at different times in the year, you see different creatures in nature doing different things, whether it's to prepare for the winter or open themselves up as the spring emerges. We are no different. You'll see me say in many of my other videos, we are not part of nature, we are nature, and yet we don't pay attention to that. So rather than maybe having the same goal of like, every day I'm gonna do this, what if you had a rhythm that said, each day or each week, I'm going to try to fit certain things in during the week, and I'm going to allow them to flow with other things in my life. And maybe those things will change from season to season, depending on what's going on, right? Maybe during some seasons you have children in school and your rhythm needs to be different. There's nothing worse than setting up a rhythm for yourself or a routine for yourself in the name of trying to face these goals. And then all of a sudden a school break happens, right? And we get totally thrown off, or summer break happens and it's like vacations or visitors and all these things, and all of a sudden now we're not doing the things that we promised ourselves we're going to do. We beat ourselves up, we get frustrated, right? Rhythm is really about how do I flow within the structure of life as it is, right? The structure of life does honor things like time. It does honor things like certain windows of experiences or needs, right? There's a certain structure to needing to bundle up in the winter versus be out in swimsuits in the summer. And we have to honor that things are different and they're constantly changing. And the problem with goals and resolutions and intentions that are only structured there and don't honor this idea of flow or rhythm is that we don't honor that everything changes all the time, right? The only thing constant is change. Now we're going to have a different rhythm and a different flow in different areas of our life, right? You might have one rhythm that is asking for something around the realm of wellness, or another rhythm asking for something around your vocation, your career, or another rhythm around your family, or yet another around your spirituality, right? And one of the keys that we can do is begin to step back and ask ourselves, okay, so what kinds of things do I know need to happen? There are some structures. Every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year, we can begin to structure it based on that, right? Like, for example, we just came off the holidays as we enter into a new year. Well, every time of year, every quarter at that time frame, you know that you might be putting decorations out for the holidays, or you might be, cleaning up the yard at a certain time before the winter comes, or you might be setting up your sprinkler system. It's like we can create a rhythm around these things that have to be done and begin to plan. And we so rarely account for those things, right? Maybe you want to get well and feel more fit, and you don't even think about the fact that, like, for example, I have my wood stove, and I stack wood and bring wood inside. And so accounting for that, there's nothing that says stacking wood is not fitness, right? So honoring these rhythmic quarterly kinds of things that we tend to do, and remembering those as part of what we're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to achieve, who we're trying to become, right? We look for opportunities to practice that already weave into the structure of our life. You can think of it this way as well. Rhythm also is like an underlying beat of a drum that happens year after year or month after month, right? There's a certain rhythm to our experiences in life, but we often don't pay attention to rhythm. And this is what gets us tripped up and not honoring the flow of life. And this is where the feminine gets ignored. We don't honor the feminine. We try to fit everything into structure only. And then we wonder why we can never manage to achieve the goals or the resolutions that we've set for ourselves. So the next thing, after we have accounted for this idea of ritual, looking back at what we've done, who we've become, creating a rhythm and considering the various rhythms, is that we want to integrate the concept of our rituals and our rhythm, right? So for example, maybe there is that ritual cup of tea every morning, but you want to have a rhythm of also writing a certain number of days a week. So could there be that cup of tea at the coffee shop right after a workout, because you also want to create a rhythm and certain things are near each other? A lot of times we don't think of this. This is what the feminine does. It has a diffuse awareness. It's not just focusing on this end goal of losing weight or changing our measurement, right? It's looking at how everything weaves together. So we want to integrate things so that they can weave together, so they can have flexibility, so they can have flow. Create ritual around it. Ritual, again, meaning this concept of what is internally bringing us a sense of joy and peace and centeredness and groundedness, and then weave that into our rhythm. So we're constantly associating our rhythm with feeling good. How often do we set goals for ourselves or resolutions for ourselves, and then we don't feel good doing them, and we wonder why? So that is the third stage here, is weaving things together, weaving them in so that we can create something that we can be consistent with, season after season, month after month, day after day, week after week, however it is in those rhythms. And again, I really encourage you to download the workshop, because I go into this in far greater detail. There's even some practices and exercises. It's only 60 minutes, so it's not going to take a lot of time, and yet it packs a lot of punch. It really sets you up for stepping into the new year in a very new and beautiful way. And also, if you want to create a year on your terms, I have a program called Solace, and every year we step onto a new cycle of Solace. It's a membership program, and I only open the membership a few times during the year. So if it's not open when you're watching this video, be sure to sign up on the wait list for when it opens up again. We go through these cycles that honor things like the rhythm of nature and how we show up and how we can honor our own feminine rhythms and nature to connect with that concept of really creating the life that we are longing for on our terms. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.